I discovered America in 1944 in Hope, Arkansas. At least that's what my dad said. And that's also where Mike Huckabee was born. I think I played ball maybe against some of his relatives. As long as I could remember, I've wanted to teach math on the college level and be a gospel preacher. And I've pretty much been blessed to do that for most of my life. I've been going to school since 1950, and sometime back I was speaking over at Crest on a Sunday morning and was taught the adult class, and after the class was over, the fellow got up to make the announcements, and he said, "I have had an experience today that I never thought I would ever have in my life. Something has happened that I just couldn't believe it." He said, "I've been in the class with a math teacher teaching the class, and I've understood every word he said." Understood every word he said. We hope so. I guess it's not surprising that I would want to teach math and be a gospel preacher. My dad did that in southwest Arkansas. He went to Harding in 1931. He often told the story that he and his dad sat down. He was from Middle Tennessee, Smyrna, Tennessee. And his dad was also a high school math teacher and gospel preacher. Preached over around Middle Tennessee, taught high school math. My dad did the same thing. And I come from an educated family. My grandfather had two sisters that finished at Vanderbilt and taught grade school, I think. My dad's mother, my grandmother, May Peebles, is mentioned in Bobby Lee Holly's book, Person to Person, in which she tells about May Peebles going and teaching in the reformatory to the young men who were there in that reformatory at that time. And she taught school there in Nashville several years in that reformatory. But, and I have three brothers, two of which are medical doctors, one of which was a high school math teacher and librarian. And so it wasn't any real surprise that when I finished high school in 1962, I went to Harding. My two older brothers had gone to Harding. My dad had finished at Harding in 1934, as I said, and came to Saratoga, Arkansas, which is about 20 miles from Hope, where I was born, and had taught high school math there. In fact, he was my high school math teacher. I had all my high school math classes with my dad. And my mother was actually one of my elementary school teachers as well. They both eventually finished master's degrees from East Texas State University. But with my two older brothers going to Harding, well, I put ACU down on my test thing whenever they said fill out somewhere we're going to send this thing to. I put Harding and ACU both down, but there wasn't any doubt that I was going to Harding. And so I went up there in 1962, and I was tremendously impressed. As I had thought about being a college math teacher, then I really began to think about being a college math teacher at a Christian university. That was even before the days that you couldn't say much about your faith at the state schools. But I had some wonderful teachers. I had Dr. Joe Hacker was my freshman Bible teacher. I'll mention him again in a minute. And Dr. Clark Stevens was my biology teacher. Dr. Stevens' brother was the president at ACU at that time. He eventually went on down to ACU to be chairman of the math department down there. So I was just tremendously impressed with the idea that these people were scholarly people. They were highly educated, and yet they were devout Christians. I heard Dr. Ira North preach a bunch of times while I was at Harding. I think everybody ought to hear Dr. North. You ever heard him preach, Rod? Man, he was on fire for God, wasn't he? I tell you, you couldn't listen to him preach without getting excited about Christianity. And I was just blessed. I had Bible class with Jimmy Allen. I had Bible class with Neil Pryor. And my advisor was Dr. Dean Priest, who was I think he was in his first year of teaching Harding when I got there. But so many good teachers there that I said, this is just what I want to do. So I'm praying to go to work at a Christian university, maybe go back to Harding, maybe go to Abilene Christian, maybe go to Lipscomb, where my dad, I didn't finish that a while ago, my dad sat down with his dad and decided to go to Harding instead of going to Lipscomb. He said, well, I guess he wanted to get out of Tennessee, I think. But he was making a choice between going to David Lipscomb and going to Harding. So he went to Harding, and there he met my mother, and they married in 1933. And after finishing his degree there, then he came to Southwest Arkansas. And he often told his audiences when he was preaching that based on that one decision, their speaker was there before them that day, because he decided to go to Harding instead of stay in Tennessee and go to David Lipscomb and do. So I'm at Harding and finished my math degree in 1966. I had an offer from East Texas State. There was actually a better offer to do master's degree work down there than the University of Arkansas, but I'm a Hog fan. I got to go to the University of Arkansas, watch the football team play. They'd won a national championship a couple of years before that. My folks had master's degrees out of East Texas State, and my mother hadn't finished her degree at Harding. She went to East Texas and finished her degree later on and had her master's degree down there as well, my dad did. But I'm glad I went to the University of Arkansas because I found this lovely lady up there that agreed to be my wife. And we've been married a little over 44 and a half years now. So, but there at the University of Arkansas, besides getting married, I was also given an opportunity to go to work at Henderson State University from there. That's in Southwest Arkansas. Right across the gully from Ouachita Baptist. I noticed that Jared Villarreal was at Ouachita for a little while before we came out here to play basketball. And I asked him if Cliff Harris was playing, any of you Cowboy fans here, Cliff Harris was playing for Ouachita at the time. There wasn't much doubt that he was going to be a pro prospect. And he did go on, and I don't know, played safety for Dallas Cowboys for 12, 14 years. But he was over there, and I was at Henderson. And when I moved down there, we married. A week later, we moved down to Arkadelphia, Arkansas. We had an apartment down there we'd already selected. And the next Monday after I got there, a fellow from Gurdon, Arkansas, knocked on the door of the apartment while I'd gone to school and told my wife they were looking for a preacher down at Gurdon. That worked out to be super. They asked us to move down there. I preached in Gurdon for 5 years while I taught 5 years at Henderson, and they provided us with a house, a nice place to live, and a wonderful little community there. And our first daughter was born in 1969 in Arkadelphia while we were there in Gurdon. But as I was teaching at Henderson, I'm still thinking, well, I'm going to work at a Christian college. I'm going to go get my doctorate somewhere. I don't know, maybe go back to the University of Arkansas. And I went to Hot Springs to a math meeting. And while I was there, I heard Dr. John T. Mohat, who was the chairman of the math department at North Texas State University. And that was one of the best math presentations. The man had a gift for making math look so simple and so easy. And I listened to him. I talked to him about the doctoral program at North Texas. I went out there in the summer of 1970, took a class with him and a class with another fellow out there, and I was so impressed with both of them. Really, the class with Dr. Mohat was just a wonderful math class. I think that in some ways in that class I learned more about math than I had in all my years before that. But he was just an outstanding teacher and chairman of the department. So I'm thinking, well, I'm going to go to North Texas and work on my doctorate. Henderson helped me along with that decision. After 4 years there, they decided that they didn't need me anymore. My job was over. I had planned to work 5 years before I went back and worked on my doctorate. Teach 5 years and go back and work on my doctorate. So I got a hold of State Senator Olin Hendricks over there, was prominent in politics at that time, and he went over and talked to the folks at Henderson. They decided they could use me one more year. I thank Senator Hendricks several times for that. God works in wonderful ways to have people like that who have influence. He said, well, I went over and told them that, if they expected me to help them out when they come to the Senate wanting money, then they should do me a favor and keep this guy Peebles around one more year. So we did. When they called me, I did all I could do to keep my mouth shut. Oh, yeah, y'all did find a job for me, didn't you? It's one of those things where my dad said, who was Mr. Hendricks' friend, said, you just keep your humility there, son. Don't lean on them too much. So I went to North. We moved to Denton in the summer of 1972. Again, as far as preaching is concerned. The first Sunday I was out there, I went to a singing. Imagine that. I went to a singing. And at that singing, they announced they're looking for a preacher out at Bolivar. So I drove out there that Sunday night and started preaching for them the next Sunday, and preached at Bolivar the next 4 years, and preached at Crum 3 years after that. Worked on my doctorate there at North Texas, finished coursework and stuff, and finished my working on my dissertation about 76 or 77, I guess. I taught 1 year full time there in the math department. And, oh, by the way, when I first went to the University of Arkansas, and I walked into that classroom to teach a college class, I thought I'd died and gone to heaven. My God, I'm getting to do it, you know. What I always wanted to do. And I got to Henderson doing it full time. I just really felt like I was so blessed. Just blessed beyond even thinking about it. Now here I am getting to do this. So the last year I finished up my dissertation at North Texas. They didn't have any work for me to do, so I had to get a job somewhere. There was a junior high there in Denton that the police had been walking the halls the year before. They'd been having such discipline problems out there, fights and stuff, and bad things going on. The principal was hiding in his office. So I took the job. Wondering what is it going to be like. Well, they hired a big old guy named Gail Lomax, who has been, he was a Christian, and he's been in the school systems at Abilene for some time. I don't know whether he's retired yet or not, but boy, he kept straightening things out. But that was the 1 year that I spent in the mines teaching math. 30 years experience in 1 year. I'll never forget one day I opened up my desk drawer, and there was a picture of a lady there in that desk drawer, and she was standing in front of a fire, and she needed to be standing in front of the fire because she didn't have a stitch on. And, of course, I didn't give them the pleasure of knowing I was shocked. I just closed the drawer back up. But word got around about that picture. I had several male faculty members want to come over and check it out, you know. And I survived that, and that convinced me I want to go back to teaching math at the college level. There was a community college at Gainesville. I just struck out up there one day. I got a day off from school. I went up to Gainesville. I had heard about a fellow up there that I knew was a Christian. And I was going to go up there and talk to him and see, man, if you got anything, anything I can do, I want to get back to work on the college level. I walked in the door, and his name was Stafford. I think he went on and did some work at LCU after that. And but anyway, I started talking to him. He said, you know what, they're looking for a math teacher. I said, really? Looking for a math teacher, imagine. So I went over and applied in the math department and got the job. It's a tenure track position. The guy that had taught there before had his master's degree. He had a math degree out of Abilene Christian and had taught there for years and years. And it's tenure track position. Oh, good, wonderful here. I'm going to teach math at Gainesville for a while I'm still praying, you know, Lord, I sure want to work at a Christian school. Let's just be wonderful. I got applications in at Abilene Christian. I got Abilene at Lipscomb, at Harding. I don't know why I didn't have one in at Freed Hardeman, Oklahoma Christian, but anyway, I knew some people at these other places. I got them in there everywhere. And we came out here. In 1973, we had a little girl that only lived 11 hours. She had a lung disease. Nowadays, she would probably have survived. Now, that's a big question, but they were just starting to do ventilators back then. So if they could have put her on a ventilator, doctor says if she makes it through the night, she'll be all right, but she didn't make it through the night. So in 1975, then we decided to adopt a child. And knew John Mason, who worked at Smith Lawn Home, worked over here at Lubbock Christian University a lot, and got a hold of John, and they finally got us lined out. And we came out here in September of 75 and got our son Scott and all, you know, and it was a cold, bitter day, and the wind was blowing, and our daughter, Renee, needed a coat, so we went to the mall and bought her a winter coat, and we drove out of Lubbock saying, I wouldn't want to live in this town. I would never want to live in Lubbock, Texas. Nope. So I'm teaching at Gainesville there, just doing a great job. God set me up. I had the best evaluations. People in math and science get terrible about it. Man, I had evaluations. This guy's God's gift to math teaching. He's just the finest thing that ever been in the math class. I never had evaluations like that before nor since. And so I was preaching at Crum. I'd preached at Bolivar 4 years, moved down to Crum. You may have heard of Crum. They used to win a lot of state championships. And we got one of our basketball players coaching over there now, Lance I can't think of his last name. He got a math degree here. Anyway, preaching at Crum, and in the spring of 1979, I found out that tenure track position at Gainesville was gone. The state had cut the money. I wasn't going to have a job teaching at Gainesville next year. The situation at Crum had always been kind of back and forth, whether they really wanted me there or not. And after 3 years, they decided they didn't want me there. So I'm looking around, and I've got to find a place to teach next year. I'd like to find a place to preach. I haven't got a place to preach right now. I haven't got a place to teach right now. What am I going to do? I'm going to read Newton. I called Dr. Curse, I believe that was his name, who was the chair of the math department at David Lipscomb, because I found out that Abilene Christian had filled their position. They had a position open down there, and I sent Dr. Clark Stevens, my resume because he knew me. All right, so they got a position open down there, but they filled it with a fellow named Wayne Poucher, it was Wayne Poucher's brother, who was a math teacher at David Lipscomb. So I called Lipscomb. Well, no, we're not going to fill that position up here. We don't have the money to fill that position. So I'm looking everywhere, started sending out applications to some place. And I walked in my office one day there, I guess in March, and there on my desk was a note that said, call Steve Limley at Lubbock Christian College. I was shocked. I don't know how he got my name. I don't know how. I think he got it from Harding or Abilene Christian, one or the other. I'm not sure. And Dr. Hacker had called me in 1975. I should have known something was going to happen. He called me in 1974 or 75 when he was president out here and said, we need somebody to come out and shore up this math department. I said, oh, and I felt complimented, really complimented, because like I said, he was my Bible teacher at Harding. And my dad, by the way, had been on the board at Harding from 1951 till his death in 1981. But I told him, I said, I'm going to stay right here in Denton until I get this degree. I've known too many people. Two friends in math that never did get their PhD because they left the school and went back to work and teach. And I'm sure everybody in this room knows somebody like that. Never finished a PhD. I said, Dr. Hacker, I appreciate this call. I'd love to. I want to work at a Christian college. They said, I don't want to go in Lubbock. I want to work at a Christian college, and but you hang on, I'm going to finish this degree. So I did finish that degree in 77. Like I said, I'm without a job at Gainesville. I'm without a preaching job. I'm just free as a breeze, I guess. I'm looking around and saying, Lord, what you want me to do? So there's that note on my desk, and I called Dr. Limley back. He said, why don't you come out and interview? We were looking for somebody to chair the math department out here. So I flew out there and talked to him, and they hired me. Visited with him, and I don't know, he called me back about a week later and said, we'd like to have you come out here and be the chair of the math department. And I did that for 17 years, but again, I thought, well, be careful what you pray for. God will answer that prayer, and you will be teaching at a Christian college, whether you want to be there at that Christian college or not. You will be there. And there I was. And so Dr. Blasingame mentioned the Friday singing there on the thing. I started that in 1996 when we were having special interest chapel. I've been around singing the little Saratoga community that I grew up in. We had an elder and his wife who sang bass and alto, and another elder that sang tenor, and they had a quartet. They'd sing them good old songs, Hide Me, Rock of Ages, and Jesus, Hold My Hand. I heard them all standing by the river growing up, and just wonderful singing out there. And my dad preached all over, especially rural congregations, and we'd go, and boy, they'd be singing those good old convention Stamps Baxter songs, and I just really got into it. And I had been singing in the quartet when I was at Bolivar and also at Crum, and right before I left, the fellow that knew me came and said, say, Peebles, we'd like for you to sing in our quartet. I said, well, I'm sorry, I'm moving to Lubbock. But anyway, we did. I got out here and sort of got busy with other things for a while. I have always encouraged singing. I preached at Bolivar. I'd have the young men get up and lead a song. Did that at Gurdon when we were there. We'd have a singing night at Gurdon. And came out here and preached at Graham Chapel 5.5 years. And we'd have a singing down there. Those people love to sing. And out at Sunrise where I preached from 89 to 2002. We started having a Sunday night singing once a month, and I've tried to teach some singing classes and stuff like that. So we were having a special interest chapel. I don't remember when we started that, Rod, but we started that somewhere back in there. We're having that on Thursday. We was having chapel Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday. Special interest chapel on Thursday, and it had several things going. And they were having a singing chapel, but they were singing mostly contemporary stuff. And so I thought, well, why don't I try to see if anybody would be interested in having Stamps Baxter singing. So we did. I signed that thing on, and we had about 150 or 200 students sign up for that thing, more than had ever signed up for any special. They had to sign up for something because they got to go to chapel. 150, 200. I know Jim Foster told me, he said more people signed up for that thing. And it was like Nat Cooper's telling me about singing they're having on Sunday nights over at Sunset right now, and they're packing the building. They're packing the building on Sunday night because they're singing over there. So we started that in '96, and we were singing in the CDC auditorium there. Les Perrin's coming, wonderful. Jerry's coming, some other people coming, Joyce Foster, all kinds of students there. I've had some wonderful singers all down through the years. Brad Seaton's been a part of it, and right now I've got Stephen Short and Allie Webb and some other good singers coming on Fridays. And so, but that was on Thursdays. We did that for about 3 years. And then it seemed like they started having chapel Monday through Thursday is what we did. And on Friday we were having sort of special interest. They were having a faculty chapel, a student chapel. I said, well, I'll just have my singing chapel. And so we did that, kept right on. So we've been meeting on Fridays and singing now since 1996. That's a chance to sing some of my songs too. I've had 8 or 10 published. I ran into Robert S. Arnold, who wrote No Tears in Heaven, at a Brumley singing in '99, and he was nice enough to publish 1 or 2 of my songs in every one of his books for the next 4 years before he died. I sure hate to see him die. I was enjoying getting that publicity, but never thought I'd be in Lubbock, Texas. Figured I'd be somewhere else teaching at a Christian college, but I'm here. It's been great. I've enjoyed it. I think God just sort of picked me up and said, you belong out here. And it's been one. I've had so many great students, and like your son and a bunch, and your husband, and a bunch more. And I've been able to do for 45 years, I guess. I taught that first class at the University of Arkansas in 1966. 45 years and preaching since 1963. And right now we're doing a Sunday morning worship service out at Raider Ranch, and we have a quartet that goes out there and sings. You know who those people in that quartet are? They're people out of my Friday singing. Allie Webb and Stephen Short and Jerry Perrin and some of those people. It's amazing how that God will take something like that, and we go out there and we sing at Raider Ranch once a month. So I'm just still amazed every day I come to work that God put me here, has used me in so many ways, got me through the death of our adopted son in 2003 in a car wreck, and life goes on. You know, you never get over those kind of things, but life goes on. And my dad lost a brother in World War II, and he said, son, don't ever lose your sense of humor. So I'm still trying to hold on to my sense of humor. One of my favorite lines in class is, I hate ugly problems. Because we don't have any ugly problems in my class if I can help it. Because every morning when I get up and look in the mirror, I see an ugly problem, and I don't want to see another one the rest of the day. Questions? Yes, ma'am. You got the first one, don't you?
I got the first 2.
First 2. Okay, good. What did I leave out?
I'll ask the first one. I'll ask the one I should ask second first to get it out of the way. When you flew out in March to
Interview.
Was it a pretty day?
Yes, it was. Nice weather.
Really?
And I got to see my friend John Mason, who was working here then. And it really was nice. It wasn't the bad weather like it was when we came out here and got Scott. Nice, warm day. I remember we went down to the CDC building. Dr. Lemley took me around the campus. We looked out that one day. He said, we're going to have a football team going to be playing down there next year. I said, oh, good. I like that. Of course, I ran into John Mason, and John said, don't come out here, David. This place is in dead up to its ears. Who knows where they'll even be able to open up next year? You know, I turned a deaf ear on him because Howard Hewlett, who was at Smith Lawn and carried through the adoption, told me, he said, there's people around this town with money, they're not going to let that school go under. They're not going to let that school. I took Howard's word. Yeah, so it was good weather. I'm glad it was good weather. That kind of helped me. But I mean, I didn't have a choice. I mean, to me, it just looked so obvious that God was putting me. What?
It would have been hard if it had been bad that day.
Oh yeah, it would. I don't know. I don't care what had been happening. It just seemed to me that when I walked in that office that day, saw Steve Limley's name on my desk. I never met the man. I'd been reading Power for Today that he was editing for a while. We used it in our family devotionals. And he said I made his day when I called him that day. And I said, I used Power for Today in our family devotion. He said, boy, you made my day right there, you know. But I just said, I know where God wants me to be if they decide to hire me.
That's right. Yeah. Okay, we really need a whiteboard for this.
Okay. All right.
Explain your dissertation to us. Oh, in a math class, what is a... Well, is that your question?
That was going to be my question.
I just can't imagine what a math PhD person does for a dissertation. So.
It's on file at the library. I've got a copy of it. I gave them a copy after my folks died. I had got them a copy, yeah. And so I had 2 copies of my dissertation. Basically, it has to do what math people call set theory. I went through three committees trying to get what I wanted. You know, first 2 didn't like what I was doing. So it's basically what they call set theory and the use of the indirect approach, which I have found to be a wonderful tool anywhere and everywhere. When I've taught my math ed classes, I've asked questions like, what if we didn't give grades? What if we didn't have administrators? You know, what if the students didn't use textbooks? You know, what if we didn't have any technology? You know, and I think that is such a great tool as to just talk about it's in any critical thinking argument. If you ask the opposite, you know, where does that lead you? And of course, in my classes, I say, what if God didn't exist? Where does that put us? You know, and things like that. But that's it. Well, what I did do. Yeah, it's kind of like you got a circle there. Either you're in the circle or you're out. If you're in the circle, it's one or the other. In the circle is correct, and out of the circle is incorrect. So what I tried to do was to try to relate that to some of the concepts in trigonometry, which is pretty basic. And but relate that and the idea of whether you should approach this problem in this way or approach it in a different way, and which approach is going to be the best, and who knows. I have students tell me all the time, well, you know, I wish I knew another way to do this problem because I don't understand this one. You know? And I've had other students tell me, don't show me another way. I know how to do it. Don't mess with my mind, you know. So, oh, by the way, I got an honorary doctorate of humor about the 2nd or 3rd year I was out here. I think Kevin Rhodes had something to do with that. Honorary doctorate of humor. It was in they mentioned that in the catalog. That's the only award I've got out here, by the way. Yeah, I call that.
Defending your dissertation in math, do you stand up in front of your committee and solve problems?
Well, they just ask questions about what you wrote. And one fella, like I said, I'd been through 3 committees, and one fella came in there and he said, usually I have a lot of questions about this thing, but you know, I read every word of this dissertation. I agree with everything you said. I want to jump over there and hug his neck. I did. Boy, I was so worried about what are they going to do to me when they get in there. You know, you hear all the horror stories about they ask one question, and the more you try to defend it, the more you find out your dissertation is no good. But I was pretty confident about the work I had. But they do. My minor professor pointed out a place in there where I had a incorrect statement. We corrected that, you know, and it really went well. It went well. I was ecstatic. After being on my 3rd committee and wondering, am I going to ever get this dissertation done the way I want it, you know. But I was just tickled to death.
Someone else?
Yeah, I have a question. How long did you have to live here before you decided you liked
Well, I wouldn't say that I actually like being here. I've accepted it. I am, you know, I love the people. I love the school. I love the places I've been able to preach. Wonderful people at Graham Chapel. I preached at Piney Park While, out at Sunrise. Or wonderful folks over at Raider Ranch. I told Jeff I could preach the same sermon every Sunday over there, you know, but we're not. I haven't quite done that yet, but but you know, I don't. It's not home. That's what I told you the other day. It's like what Tim Perrin said. It's not home. Home is over in Southwest Arkansas, where I have two brothers over there, and my dad's name's on the school building over there, where he taught for 40 something years anyway. So, but I've made myself at home. It's like Dr. Mason said in one of his talks one time: bloom where you're planted. So this is where I'm planted. This is where I'm going to bloom. This is where I'm going to, you know, I'm still a big Razorback fan. If they're playing on the football team, basketball team, the other night I thought I was in hog heaven. The men and women's basketball team were both on at the same time. Last Thursday night. Razorback heaven. Yeah, Razorback heaven. But I just, and I love the work here. I love the students. I've been so blessed, and every day I'm thankful for my job, absolutely. But I wouldn't say I've ever grown to like it, you know. It's not home.
If you retired, would you move back to Arkansas?
Well, we're working on that. Yes, I would. I have two brothers in Southwest Arkansas. One's a radiologist in Texarkana. One's a general practitioner, ER doctor in Nashville, Arkansas. And we play a lot of golf. My oldest brother's had some back problems, and he hadn't been able to get around much, but he's still in pretty good health. And so a lot of friends over there. Every May they have a school reunion over there that we go to called Saratoga Day, and we'll go over there and people talk about old times and school times and what we did. And a whole lot of people there still remember my dad and all his preaching, and I've often wondered how many people he actually baptized and how many weddings he did and how many funerals he did. One of the local preachers told me one time that he worked 5 funerals with my dad one week. So he did a lot of work over there. Dr. Holler?
Have you ever used your coffee habit as a word problem? You know, like
you can do that. Yeah, what the contents is.
Make your students, you know,
calculate how much I drink in a day's time if I drink several cups. That would be, that's good. And it's,
you know, the probability factor, you know, I might just be refreshing my cup.
Yeah, what I tell them is the doctor told me to cut down to 1 cup a day, so that's it.
So that's how I calculate how much sugar I was ingesting from my Dr. Pepper habit. And it really did hurt my brain after a while.
Well, thankfully, everything I read about coffee drinking is good for you.
So you're not reading the negative ones, right?
No, well, I don't know. I haven't read any negative ones. They say people don't have Alzheimer's. People have all this stuff. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so one thing that math and English have in common is a lot of us go into it with that love of it, and like you said, you just always wanted to teach college.
Yes, always did. Always did.
And then you get into it, and you're forced to teach people who absolutely hate it.
Yeah.
And so I was curious as to, I guess it's a 2-part question, whether the college teaching had been as wonderful as you hoped it would be, or where you find your joy in teaching, what kinds of things, like is it the best when you take a student who hates math and turn them into somebody who loves math, or is it the best when you get somebody who's like you and loves it from the beginning, or what's your happy moment?
All of that is good. It's so wonderful, Bill. Les Perrin said about teaching history, his main goal was for people not to hate it anymore when they got through with this class than when they came in. And that's been my goal in math too. Let's don't hate this class anymore. Don't hate math anymore. But both of them, I had that happen some in that year in the mines in junior high. I had some kids that really got excited about math, and that was a blessing, you know. And I ran into some of them a time or two afterwards, and they talked about how they went to high school and took math classes, and I had encouraged them to really like math, you know. Same time, I get people like your husband and your son in class, and boy, that's wonderful too. And what was the kid's name that finished at the age of 16 here? Victor Jared Palmer. And I never expected to have one of those guys. You know, if you watch numbers, he was brilliant. He came here, I think, when he was 12 and finished his math degree when he was 16. And I don't know if I figured he would go on and get a doctorate, but I don't know whether he did. But, I mean, he was something. We talked about him all the time, about trying to stay ahead of him. Because he would come up with things that I had never thought about. And the same thing with Austin and Drew Brandon and Ashley Ray. And, I've had so many good math students. Keith Rogers was one of my students. I had Byron in class when I first came out here. But I think the biggest joy is to hear people say, I tell them, this is another thing I like to tell them, that, if you hate math, then listen, you're about to have a good learning experience about life, because the rest of your life, from time to time, you're going to have to do things you don't like and try to enjoy it. And that's what I tell them. This is a math class. You don't like it. Well, just get in here and try to enjoy it, and maybe you will before it's over with. Jack Nadeau had a good talk in chapel one time out here about the as-if principle. That whatever you're facing, face it as if it's something you really want to do. As if you really like it. So, and when I see people, and I hear people say, I hear people come back and say, boy, that math class I had with you was one of the best classes I had the whole time in college. Of course, they may just be fibbing, but hear things like that, and it's really good. And it'll be something I'll rejoice in all my life. People that I've had. Steve Gomez came in as a business major, and I had him in business math class. And somewhere along there, I guess I must have convinced him he ought to be a math major. So he switched over to being a math major, and he and Curry Blackwell and some other athletes about that time were really good math majors. And so it's just a joy. I started to say about where we're going to move to. We got, oldest daughter Renee has our 2 grandchildren in Garland. So my wife is wanting to move close to Garland. I'm wanting to move close to Texarkana. So we don't know where we're going.
But you are leaving Lubbock.
We are leaving Lubbock, Lord willing. I guess, I say that with fear and trembling, after after God put me out here, will He let me leave? Please, Lord, don't let me die in West Texas. That's my daily prayer. But who knows? Who knows?
Anyone else?
I just don't, I'm not going to say anything for sure. But I've got Arkansas blood.
I just have to say that David and I have had a ton of fun making fun of him for him not liking
West Texas.
That's why I had to ask the question.
We've had a lot of good jokes out of that, haven't we?
Yeah, I remember one day when I told you, well, if you just like it so much out here, why don't you just go back?
Yeah. That's what David Joyner keeps telling me too. I'd be scared to leave unless I was real sure again. I had some kind of a real sign that I got the last time, to come out here. Because I don't, if God doesn't want me to go, I sure don't want to go. I don't go without Him, if He wants me somewhere else, well, going without Him. No. Well, I think there's a few Christians over there. Place called Harding. And so many.
At one time you had some Arkansas buddies on campus, but I think you're the only one right now.
Linda Cash is still here. Yeah, she finished at Harding. Yeah, Jerry Perrin did, and I guess his wife did, and Les and Lane both finished at Harding. There are quite a few. Yeah, Perry and Lynn finished at Harding. There were quite a few who were Hugh Rhodes. I knew Hugh Rhodes before he came out here. Like I said, my dad was on the board at Harding. I knew Hugh Rhodes before he came out here. I knew Billy Maddox before he came out here. I don't know who all else, but there were a lot of Harding people and a lot of Arkansas.
Most of the original faculty were at Harding Roots.
Yeah, and that's what Brother Maddox said. Dr. Benson said, don't you take any of my faculty with you when you go out there. The first song that I got published was based on a statement that F.W. Maddox made in a sermon holding a meeting in Arkansas, and he said there's a lot of dead people walking the streets of hope. Dead people walking the streets of hope. And talking about spiritually dead people, And so I wrote a song entitled, Are You Living in Jesus Today? Are you living in Christ? Are you dead in your sins? Stamps Baxter published that one in '76, and I thought I was on my way. Didn't hear from them again. Didn't get another song published till I got to brother. Now I can't even remember his name. Brother Robert S. Arnold in 1999. But I had been in contact with Stamps Baxter a lot about publishing some of my songs, and they did one. It was in their golden anniversary edition in 1976, so I felt real honored about that. They control the songs. I see it every once in a while in the book. I don't know who all's using it, where all it's been used, but I see it every once in a while in the books. So, got to go finish up my lunch here.
I knew it would be a great talk. Great talk.
I was happy to do it. I was happy to. It's been an unbelievable joy, like Doc said this morning.